Hi, APUSHers. Today we are going to talk about Obergefell V Hodges by Elia, Emma, and Jack. This was a vital court case in which the states came to recognize same-sex marriage. This was a federal court case which usually, before this case, states would license marriages. This was a hot topic where people argued that the federal government was using too much power. Here is our primary source. Here is a picture after the ruling of the Supreme Court in favor of James Obergefell. Here, Obergefell is seen answering questions to reporters with supporters behind him. Some analysis of this photo was that the photo shows the widespread support for the cause. Why we chose this project? We chose this project because the rights and freedoms of the LGBTQ+ community are still important and controversial 9 years later, thus is still an important topic. This is our thesis. The Obergefell v. Hodges case was correct as being the national government decision because it violated a federal law, the 14th Amendment, and not a state law. History of the gay rights movement. The LGBTQ movement truly started in 1969 with the Stonewall riots. The Stonewall riots were a series of violent protests against the police. This began because the police raided a gay bar called the Stonewall Inn. This was the first form of protest for this movement, and the movement exploded after this in popularity. In 1973, history was made again when the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from its mental disorders manual. In 2001, the world saw the Netherlands legalize same-sex marriage, which affected many other countries to push for that goal as well. Finally, in 2015, the U.S. pushed for this goal and ended up in the Supreme Court with the case of Obergefell v. Hodges.
This is the history of the court case. The Supreme Court ruled that the discrimination of gay marriages violated the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says, and this is a direct quote from the amendment, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the laws." So, how did the 14th Amendment come to be? After the Civil War between the Confederacy and the Union came the era of Reconstruction. Under President Lincoln, he wished for immediate reunification of the Union that was still somewhat strict on the South. However, in April of 1865, he was assassinated. His successor, President Johnson, opted for a very lenient and forgiving Reconstruction, contradicting his very radical Congress, who wanted harsher punishments for the post-Confederate South. For example, Congress proposed the Civil Rights Act of 1866 that declared all persons born in the United States to be citizens without distinction of race or color or previous condition of slavery nor involuntary servitude. But President Johnson vetoed this. However, Congress overturned his veto. Concerns about protecting the Civil Rights Act led to Congress passing the 14th Amendment. The amendment was for the entire country, not just a single state, meaning it was not up for state interpretation. Another reason why the 14th Amendment was very important was that it overturned the Dred Scott court case, which said the right of property of a slave is distinctly and expressly affirmed in the Constitution. The right to traffic in it like an ordinary article of merchandise, and the property was guaranteed to the citizens of the United States in every state that might desire it for 20 years. This was the opinion of Justice Curtis on the Dred Scott v. Sanford case. The 14th Amendment showed its power of not being up for state interpretation by overturning this court case. The 14th Amendment is one of the most important amendments to the Constitution. If the federal government turned a blind eye to states' refusal to recognize gay marriages, then it is plausible that other sections of the amendment would be violated as well. The 14th Amendment is a cornerstone of American constitutional law, profoundly shaping the nation's understanding of citizenship, rights, and equality. Its provisions have been pivotal in expanding and protecting civil rights across various aspects of American life. When Ohio and other states violated it, it was the federal government's duty and responsibility to step in. Here is James Jim Obergefell. Obergefell is an American civil rights activist who was a lead plaintiff in the court case. This means he argued in favor of same-sex marriage. And this is Richard Hodges. He was the director of the Ohio Department of Public Health and was a former member of the Ohio House of Representatives. He was the defendant and argued against the legalization of same-sex marriage. Here are the details of Obergefell v. Hodges. In 2013, James Obergefell sued the state of Ohio. This is where Hodges comes in because gay marriage was illegal in that state. Between 2012 and 2014, plaintiffs in Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee filed federal court cases. This ultimately led to the Obergefell v. Hodges case that we know today. Like I stated before, James Obergefell, the American civil rights activist, was the lead plaintiff in this case, and Richard Hodges, the director of the Ohio Department of Public Health and the former member of the House of Representatives, was the defendant of this case. They went to court, and the final ruling was made in favor of requiring states to give marriage license to anyone getting married, regardless of sex. The ruling was 5-4, with the majority being made up of Kennedy, Ginsburg, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan. The dissidents of this case included Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, and Alito. The Supreme Court's decision said that states must allow and recognize same-sex marriages under the due process and equal protection clauses of the 14th Amendment. This decision effectively required all states to issue marriage license to same-sex couples and recognize same-sex marriages performed in other jurisdictions.
The effects. There were more rights for LGBTQ people. The line that was in between same-sex marriage and gay marriage was no longer drawn anymore in the eyes of the state. Therefore, an attorney can perform the same functions for a member of the LGBTQ community as they can for anybody else. There was many mental and physical health improvements and benefits, as homosexual mental and physical health drastically improved, decreasing stress and stigmatization. The Obergefell decision also indirectly affected the health of many LGBTQ people by expanding federal and state health benefits. Before this case, gay spouses did not receive federal benefits, since marriage status between the states did not recognize gay marriage. This means that gay people had no Social Security or veteran benefits. Now that all the states required to acknowledge marriage equally, same-sex couples who could not go out of their state to get married could now enjoy state and federal advantages once they tied a knot in their own state. This is particularly crucial for individuals who are taking care of an ill partner and require spousal benefits or job security in order to provide care for their spouse. There was significant progress for the movement despite the continued discrimination. According to Tony Hernandez, our journey towards a more perfect union is not over so long as discrimination and intolerance exist in America. So on this day, let us renew our commitment to speaking out against hate and bigotry. Let us continue fighting for equal justice for everyone. Let us lead with love. This quote shows us as there is still hate and bigotry in the world, and work to be done to stop the hate against the gay people in the United States of America. This ruling was a big step, but there is still more to be done. There is still work to be done. there are still laws that are made to discriminate against the LGBTQ plus community. In 2022, lawmakers introduced over 300 bills targeting the rights of the LGBTQ plus community, especially the youth of this community. That same year, it was reported that over 70% of LGBTQ plus Americans face unequal treatment. In Florida, the Don't Say Gay law restricts schools from discussing sexual orientation and gender identity in schools. This law marks an increase in LGBTQ plus censorship in schools across the country, with states all over the nation, such as Massachusetts, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and more. Many proposed anti-gay laws have been defeated, representing the fight that started all the way back in 1969 with the Stonewall riots and have continued over into 2024. Many young people are the face of this discrimination, as 67% of queer Gen Zers have reported experiencing aggression based on their sexual orientation and 56% based on their gender identity or expression. Obergefell V Hodges was a step in the right direction to give equal rights and protection to the gay community, but there is still work to be done. Why it was the government's decision. States' illegal discrimination of gay marriage violated the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, adopted on July 9, 1868, includes several important clauses, such as the Citizenship Clause, the Due Process Clause, and the Equal Protection Clause. These clauses collectively ensured that the states could not infringe upon the rights guaranteed by the amendment. The 14th Amendment is not up for state interpretation, and they have to comply with the amendment. When Ohio failed to recognize Obergefell's gay marriage, they violated the 14th Amendment, thus the federal government had to get involved.
Here is our video. This video is important because it shows the opinions and passions of James Obergefell and gives us greater detail of his reason for fighting. It gives us more information about what it means to be legally married in the point of view of a gay man.
My name is Jim Obergefell, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I've lived in Ohio for most of my life. My late husband, John, and I were together for almost 21 years before he passed away as a result of the complications of ALS. I'm here today in front of our nation's highest court because my home state fought the recognition of my marriage to John. And when the man I loved and cared for passed away from one of the cruelest diseases known to humanity, the state of Ohio, the state in which I've lived, worked, and paid taxes for most of my life, continued to fight my right to list my name on John's death certificate. No American should have to suffer that indignity. That's why John and I and the 30 plaintiffs who are part of this lawsuit decided to fight. I know in my heart that John is with me today. That man cared for and loved me for 21 years through thick and thin. Today's ruling from the Supreme Court affirms what millions across this country already know to be true in our hearts. Our love is equal. That the 4 words etched onto the front of the Supreme Court, equal justice under law, apply to us too. All Americans deserve equal dignity, respect, and treatment when it comes to the recognition of our relationships and families. Now, at long last, Ohio will recognize our marriage, and most important, marriage equality will come to every state across our country. It's my hope that the term gay marriage will soon be a thing of the past, that from this day forward, it will simply be marriage, and our nation will be better off because of it. I also hope that this decision has a profound effect in reducing the stigma, the hurt, the alienation and discrimination that LGBT people all too often feel when we live our lives openly and authentically. At the same time, while we will celebrate today's victory, my heart is also in Charleston. These past few weeks and months have been an important reminder that discrimination in many forms is alive and well in America. It reminds us of the deeply unfortunate reality that progress for some is not progress for all, and that there can be equally significant steps backward as there are forward. If we're truly dedicated to our democracy and the values that we as a nation cherish, we must be equally committed to ensuring that all citizens are treated equally, that all Americans deserve justice. That's when we're all united. I want to thank my legal team, and especially Al Gerhardstein, who stood by me every single step of the way. And thank you to ACLU, Lambda Legal, GLAD, and NCLR, and all of the litigators, plaintiffs, and organizations who fought for equality. Today's victory, our shared victory, was only possible because of each and every one of you. I'd like to give a special thank you to Mary Bonato and Doug Howard-Dreimeyer, who brilliantly argued our case before the court and eloquently affirmed my life and relationship and those of millions of others like me across this country. We owe you all a huge debt of gratitude. But most importantly, I'd like to thank John for loving me, for making me a better man, and for giving me something worth fighting for. I love you. This is for you, John. Thank you.
This is Mary Bonato.
Okay guys, now it is time for our Kahoot. We made this Kahoot based off of our presentation, so if you're paying attention, it should be easy. This has been Elia, Jack, and Emma teaching you guys all about Obergefell V Hodges. We hope you enjoyed our video and had fun on the Kahoot. Okay.
Yay!
No, I need to start over.
No, don't start over.
Bye.
Bye.